Hello, Aquarius, and welcome to Dharma, the Planet Waves spring reading. My name is Eric Francis Coppolino here with the good news about your astrology coming to you on International Press Freedom Day. So I'm celebrating. Kiss a journalist. All right. So I have truly been having fun writing the Aquarius readings in the Respect series and the Intelligence series and other places because it's just so interesting to write about Aquarius right now, and this is a relatively new thing, and it involves Saturn arriving in your sign, which is the best thing that you could want. Saturn's making its first foray. It's going to back into Capricorn over the summer. And then in December, it's going to re-enter Aquarius, where it will be for the next approximately 2.5 years. Also, at the same time as Saturn re-enters Aquarius, Jupiter arrives in Aquarius, and we will have the once per 20-year conjunction of the two largest planets, Jupiter and Saturn, together, comprising something like 2,200 times the size of the Earth. I mean, you can't imagine what it would be like to, it would take the best three-dimensional virtual reality CGI to maybe give you a feeling of what it would be like, but put up on a big screen somewhere. And this is coming to your sign. This conjunction of these two absolutely beautiful, majestic, and utterly necessary planets in astrology. And so it's almost as if the conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn is a celebration of Aquarius and of Aquarian astrology, and notably, it's also the answer to the Saturn-Pluto conjunction of January 12th. That is basically the astrology to which we can ascribe this whole shit show of the pandemic and coronavirus scare and the stock market crash and 30 million people unemployed. The answer to that is the conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn in your sign. Happens once every 20 years. excuse me. Saturn Pluto happens every 37 years. So Saturn Pluto happens like half as often. But the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction, if you look through the cycles of history, it's always interesting. It's always exciting. It gets a result. And unlike the Saturn-Pluto conjunction, which is really the astrology of fear and contraction and authoritarianism and all these things that just get really annoying after a while, Jupiter conjunct Saturn has an expansive quality, and thanks to the presence of Jupiter, a more liberalizing quality that we need. We need a little relief from fear, and we need a concept of freedom and a little more loving approach to things than we're getting. And while Aquarius is not the sign of peace and love. I mean, I hate to break it to you, and the Fifth Dimension song, with that bass line, I recently found out who played that bass line. One of the great bass players of all time, session bass players, played that bass line. I mean, check it out. All right, but unfortunately, it's not an astrologically accurate concept for reasons you should know about. And I've made this point a number of times. I'm going to keep making it. The introductory video to this series has a lot about Aquarius in it. I wasn't planning to go off in that direction, but I think like about 25 minutes for the 40-minute introduction, I'm talking about Aquarius, the age of Aquarius, and the properties of Aquarius that make it what it is. And the arrival of Saturn in Aquarius is going to help us with the negative manifestations of those properties of Aquarius that exist anyway at all times. I had Rob Hand on the phone a couple of weeks ago, and when I formulate a good question, I just call him and or text him, and he calls me back, and I get to have a conversation, a series of conversations of going on now for 20 years with one of the greatest living, wisest astrologers, and Papa Smurf incarnate. And we were talking about the rulership of Capricorn by Saturn and the rulership of Aquarius by Saturn. And I said, I started to pick up on what he was saying, and I understand that there's real benefits to the Aquarius aspect of Saturn. It's much more what we think about as Aquarian than just Aquarius itself, right? Saturn helps that. And he was practically jumping up and down saying, absolutely, hands down, no question about it, the Saturn, the Aquarius facet of Saturn is the thing that you want from Saturn. And now we're going to get that. You may be having a Saturn return. There's not that many people with Saturn and Aquarius in their natal chart, but if you're born in the mid 60s, really that's like 62 to 64, maybe 61 to 64. You may have Saturn and Aquarius. You're unlikely to be on your third Saturn return. First Saturn return is people born between 91 and 94. So it is a very utilitarian, helpful energy that brings to Aquarius some of that egalitarian, fair-minded spirit that we like to think of Aquarius as being known for. The problem is that Aquarius struggles with that fair-mindedness and that even-handed quality because of a couple of things. One is that the potency of Aquarius pushes things away from the emotions and toward the mind. And so unless there are very supportive aspects in an Aquarian natal chart, it's going to be a tendency you have to watch your whole life. And also, under any circumstances, you want to know your chart well enough to know where you're drawing the resources from the water signs, the fire signs, and the earth signs, so that you can work with the full set of psychic and emotional paints. The other property of Aquarius that is its most difficult property, and sometimes its most useful property, but its most difficult property overall as a archetypal thing, as a conceptual thing, is Aquarius tends to make patterns that are very difficult to get out of. It's almost like a pattern generating machine, and it wants to have it. Not that it wants to; it knows no other way except to crystallize things. So, for example, when you think of whatever force of nature, here's a Herkimer diamond. Whatever force of nature turned the, I guess, various liquids and gases in the midst of a bunch of molten rock into this unbelievably precise shape. I mean, it's a piece of the matrix is on here. So when you look at these facets, it's just absolutely beautiful. And this is a wholly natural object. The force of crystallization that did that is the natural thing that you can think of as an Aquarian energy. It is entirely neutral. It does not care what it crystallizes or how. It's like a bucket of paint. It's going to make the thing that color. And what happens with that is that it can become oppressive. It is the structure can be very difficult to get out of, and the patterns, once established, can be extremely difficult to change, to shift, or to alter in any way. And one of the things we're experiencing now is a shock that is allowing us to alter our patterns at the beginning of the Aquarian age, which I think of, by the way, as being the electronic age. I would say, if you want a good time frame when the age of Aquarius started, even though this is not supported astronomically by the, if you know these facts, the sidereal vernal points nowhere near the constellation of Aquarius, and so on and so on. My take is we can deduce from the effects of the time that we're in, where we are. If there's palm trees, it must be warm. If you know all the animals like tropical fruits, it must be warm. If the people build igloos, it must be chilly. And so I think the dawn of the Aquarian age is right around when the first radio station is licensed in the late 1920s under the Uranus-Eris conjunction of that era. We have now come from 100 years from the first radio station being licensed through the age of radio, through the age of cinema, through the age of television and recorded music, more or less concurrent. Recorded music a little bit older. That's an Edison invention. Then into early computing, which was going to the point of being useful in the 30s, and then real computing in the 60s, and then the digital revolution that basically has run from approximately 1990 through today. That's how we know we're in the age of Aquarius. And the way those patterns take over, they seem like unstoppable fads. That's the thing you want to be conscious of operating in your own psyche. So you want to be asking yourself what exactly it is you're crystallizing, what exactly it is that you are investing energy in building patterns for, or not even as a conscious choice, what it is that what patterns happen to be being built. What are the patterns that are just manifesting? And so as an Aquarian, you want to be a student of patterns. You want to be a master of pattern recognition. This could be a fine art for you, and who knows, maybe it is. Maybe you're one of those FBI crime scene analysts and you can just solve it. Write to me if you are. Okay, so this big celebration revelation that will change you and is already changing you comes on the heels of two very difficult transits in your solar 12th house. Aquarius here, first house, Capricorn there, 12th house. And the 12th is this the 12th is like the closet that's a broom closet during the day, but then at night when you're dreaming and you open the closet, there's a staircase going up, and it goes up into this hotel with 500 rooms, and in each one of these rooms is a pair of your ancestors. And you could open any door, but you don't necessarily want to. This is the 12th house. The 12th is the parallel dimension. The 12th is whatever's going on the other side of that wall that I have absolutely no idea what it is. To me, it's just a wall. But on the other side of that wall, there is someone's life or someone's business. I have no concept of what it is. And maybe one day I'll find myself up in that room and I'll gain access to that. The 12th is a concealed place that you can get access to. And in the psyche, when you have activity astrologically in the 12th house, it's rarely pleasant. It's often very difficult. It's often it often feels like a lot of pressure. It can feel painful and difficult to have activity in the 12th house. And since '08, you've had Pluto going through your 12th house. Since 17, you've had Capricorn going through your 12th house. And then in the second week of the year, on 1/12/20, we experience the Saturn-Pluto conjunction in Capricorn in your solar 12th house, and natal 12th if you're Cap rising, and that probably was about as pleasant as passing a kidney stone, oversized. But you did, and Saturn made its way into Aquarius on the equinox on March 21st, and this has begun one of the most important before and after time frames of your life. Now, we live with a lot of important before and after time frames, and all kinds of stuff happens. But in personal lives, there's some things that just are more salient and leap out than others. And this is one of them. It is partly the result of Saturn entering your sign. It is partly the result of all that preceded Saturn entering your sign, all this intense activity in the 12th house. And it's highlighted by the conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn in the first degree of Aquarius. Now, synchronicities are interesting, and the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction is momentous under any conditions. But to put it in the first degree of Aquarius, to really say this is about all of us, and it is it's the initiation point of your sign and the whole concept of your sign. And it has a Sabian symbol. And let me see if I can. Here it is. This is my original copy from 1995. I've had this all over the world. It's basically a pile of papers now. And this is the get this book if you see it, and if you see it on the internet for anything under $100, get it. If you see it for $5, buy as many copies as there are, and I'll pay you back for them, because it's out of print and becoming extremely rare, and it's ridiculous because it's one of the best things to ever happen to modern astrology. And I'm looking in it because I want to find the Sabian. I'm going to remember it when I see it, but I'm. An old Adobe mission in California. So the mission system in California is a beautiful thing of its own, and it was part of the colonization of the West and the expansion of our civilization in the West. And what Rudyard says of the first degree of Aquarius is it's about the power inherent in all great human works to endure beyond the worker's lifespan. And so this mission system still exists, and you can go see them. And but the idea behind that is that we strive to do things that outlive us. We must do things that outlive us. I can hardly imagine having a meaningful life without works that outlive me. Now, most people express this through their children, and they have confidence that their children will continue to live and do something. But the matter of work that we do, the thing that we create, is so vital. And you are being initiated into a whole new phase of your existence and of your life. You're having an opening created in the form of Saturn opening up space, and you're having Jupiter come in the form of abundant blessing. And it's a while from here till there. I'm recording this on 3rd of May, so that's all of May, June, July, August, September, October, November, and most of December. We're looking at 9 months from the time that I'm recording this, and it's 9 months that I think if you just glance at page 1 of the New York Times, you're like, do I really? Can we just skip those 9 months and go right to the Saturn-Jupiter conjunction? Well, you don't want to skip them. there's a lot that's going to be happening, and much of it between then is happening in your 12th house. So you've had so many experiences of your 12th house in these recent years, but you may not have tuned into what the 12th house is and the particular way that it feels, the way that it's on this. It's almost like where two universes push up against each other, and the 12th wants to bleed through into the first. And there are certain things you can only do in the 12th house. There's certain things, for example, that you can do in one of your energy bodies that are 12th house experiences that are not as accessible on the physical plane. Nothing is impossible, but there are some things that are easier when you're not quite restricted by the physical body and you're more using the energy body. And what I see this as being about is the exploring through thought and the energy body what you will then be applying to use on the physical plane in physical reality. And so you want to work the energy level of this, and that means the concealed, the hidden, the unseen, introspective level, where that deep place in yourself where your soul is forming. And the soul formation property of this is described most accurately and poignantly by Jupiter conjunct Pluto, now in a series of conjunctions. So prior to Jupiter entering your sign and sort of like joining you in the manifest world, there is this internal deep, important spiritualization process going on. One of the challenging things about Aquarius is that the structuring property of Aquarius tends to collaborate in the formation of a very dense ego structure. Nobody likes to be told about this or have something said about their ego structure, but I just want to say in the most gentle possible way that that's what Aquarius does, and it's particularly strong with Aquarius rising. That the thought patterns and the thought forms and the self-concepts associated with the first house in Aquarius can make it very difficult for anything else to come through. A different idea of who you are, different expression of who you are, but something needs to come through, wants to come through, and is coming through, and it's being the forerunner of the process is Saturn. Saturn's not usually considered the head of the army, right? So the person on the vanguard, right? Saturn's like the old guard. In this case, Saturn is in its special role as the vanguard, checking out, experimenting, and getting you more than anything to see the patterns in your life and to be consciously willing to change the ones that you think you need to change. And in reality, it would help if you were willing to change all the patterns in your life. The ones that work for you will remanifest in a lighter and better way. I mean, you might not think about Saturn as being associated with lightness. Well, Saturn in Aquarius wants cooperation, and it wants to not be obsessed by these patterns. But in any event, Saturn is an agent of change, and Saturn in Aquarius is an agent of change. So I think would be well served to be introspective and to make a conscious art of practicing the humility of who you are, rather than asserting who you are in too much of a way that describes you as a fixed thing. I mean, Aquarius is a fixed sign. Aquarius is sometimes described as the least fixed of the fixed signs. All of the fixed signs, which include Leo, Scorpio, Aquarius, and Taurus, have their own special concept of how change looks for them. So, for example, Leo is ruled by the sun, and the sun is a constantly evolving, changing thing where there's just this nuclear fusion going on, and it must be really incredible to tap into what that solar fire is really about. Scorpio is about this deep level of transformation. Aquarius creates a thing where the only constant is change, but also where the only change is constancy. And this is what Saturn is saying to reorganize. Now, the idea that Aquarians identify with their ideas powerfully has a basis in the solar chart. And it's, I think, very interesting and one of those like top 20 things about why the solar chart is so incredible. The solar chart, just the chart with Aquarius on the first house and no planets, the solar chart in any sign can be used to write a whole chapter about the sign. When we add planets, we bring it into the moment and we talk about what's going on now. So in terms of identifying with your ideas, well, here's what that's about. Aquarius is the first place for Aquarius. Pisces is the second. And Aries is the third. And Aries is about what we identify with, where you seek yourself. And the third is about your thought process and your ideas. This is good, helpful for you, and it makes you who you are. And whether you're an actual inventor or a self-inventor, or you just have that that thing of loving ideation, the thing to remember is that you identify powerfully with your ideas, and while that can work for you, you also need to be conscious and careful about that, because it can lead to an over-identification with your ideas, and in particular, a kind of a fixity associated with your ideas, and that fixity can become imprisoning. And so you're on the one hand, you've got Saturn coming through, you've got Jupiter and Pluto right on the cusp of your first house, gestating and forming something that's going to be born in a series of stages, and then working with the third house factor. You have Chiron in the third house, which is all about becoming aware of whatever and wherever, and allowing yourself to evolve very rapidly in that area of your life as part of a growth and healing process. Now, while we're there, let's talk about the interplanet retrogrades, which are the other main thing of the year. You know, the year is building toward this conjunction in your sign. Along the way, as of this stage now, the two most important things that happen are the interplanet retrogrades this year. Those are the distinctive phases of preparation that are going to allow you to loosen up your reality framework and let in something entirely new, that when we come back from the spring reading of 2021, you will see how much has changed in your life in terms of who you think you are, who you present yourself to the world as being, and who you actually are inside. Because these changes are not all going on the level of what color your car is and what you call yourself and what button you wear. The changes are going on deep in the engine room of your chart. Here, one of a couple of engine rooms, the 12th house, this kind of manifestation plane of the 12th, which then everything in the 12th eventually comes into the first and manifests. And then also in this crucial zone of ideation and identifying with your ideas, and now suddenly Chiron is there. Bam! Wake up and notice what you're thinking at all times, and notice the impact and the effect of what you're thinking at all times. Chiron has been getting a lot of transits, and one of the most significant transits it's going to get involves the retrograde of Mars. So Mars currently in your sign right now, and who knows how you feel about that. Hopefully you're working on your individuation process. That's what really the blessing of Mars in Aquarius is about. It teaches you how to be an individual sufficiently to take part in a group. A group is not a mass. The people in a football stadium cheering are not a group. They're a mass. The people sitting in church are not a group. They're a mass. A group is a group of independently thinking individuals. Lots and lots and lots of things in your astrology are saying that in bright green lights, that you are learning how to be an individual thinker. And this is not as easy as it seems, because there is so much conformism in life, and so much doing things because we think that that's like the right thing to do, or that's what the family wants us to do, or that's what's acceptable. What can I really say? I don't. It's not that I can get fired from Facebook. It's that what do I want to say that might or might not be acceptable. And so there's a lot of concern about acceptability in our world, and you're in a process of unraveling this and making sure that you are going through the challenging, difficult, harrowing process of individuating. It's not easy, but it's worth it. Now the juice enters the equation with Mars retrograde later in the year, but actually the Mars retrograde spans between late June, when Mars first enters Aries, until early January when it leaves. So that's basically all of July, August, September, October, November, December, and then a piece of June and January. So we're talking about basically 5.5 months of Saturn going through here, and this is about figuring out what you believe, figuring out what you think, figuring out how you think, and we might even say, in the best possible case scenario, relearning how to think for yourself. Don't worry if you discover that you really weren't quite thinking for yourself because all these other influences. Be happy that you figured out that you weren't quite thinking for yourself, because that means you can think for yourself and have the reality and not the illusion of doing so. So this retrograde is notable in that it's going to first make a conjunction to Saturn and Chiron and Salacia before the retrograde during the direct phase on the 14th of July. 14th of July, right? That's when that takes place. And then it's going to make a triple conjunction to Eris. It's going to make a direct conjunction, a retrograde conjunction, and then again either at the very end of the year or very early in 2021, a third conjunction to Eris. And all of this is about you building and cultivating the strength to be the distinctive person who you are, to think the distinctive thoughts that you think, and to know the difference between doing that and something else. And as a person, part of whose life is constantly evaluating the thoughts of others, whether they're astrology clients or whether they're prospective writers or editors who work for me, I've got to figure out if people are able to actually think an original thought for themselves. And it is sad to say that it is Rare to find people who actually can think an original thought for themselves, and they're quite tentative about it. So this is going to be awesome. A little itchy and scratchy at times, but you will like the result. And the more you're able to embrace this whole thing I'm describing, play the video again and see all the stuff that I'm describing, the more you're able to embrace that and to loosen your patterns and loosen your preconceptions, particularly and especially your preconceptions of who you are. You don't need a preconception. You have a lot of experience and you have a whole new frontier, and you don't want to drag around identity with you. That's going to make this better. Okay, one and a half last things. The Venus retrograde takes place in your 5th. House number 5. House number 5 is always the same element as house number 1, so it's air. Venus is about to go retrograde on May 13, or if you're, depending on when you're hearing this, it already is. And it's going to do so in a conjunction to Vesta and in a conjunction to Centaur, the 4th, called Aeolus. It will retrograde back about that far and then turn around. Vesta at that point will have moved on. The two, Venus and Vesta, are going to meet up in your 7th house. So there's 2 Venus-Vesta conjunctions in Gemini. The second one's about to happen. And then the third in the series, because Venus moves faster, is going to be in your 7th house. And so that whole scenario is about a reconceptualizing of your ideas about creative collaboration, sexuality as it cohabitates with creative collaboration, and partnership in the 7th house. This is good stuff. I know that we live in the world of thou shalt never have sex with a collaborator because they might be an inferior person or a superior person. Okay, here's it. Creative collaboration combined with sexual chemistry is one of the best reasons to be human. If that is, you're turned on by creative collaboration and you're turned on by chemistry, sexual chemistry, you don't have to be. But if you are, this is high times, and it's high times for exploring this idea. But before you get to exploring that chemistry with others, comes this phase between May 13 and June 25 or so of doing the full analysis of your own internal creative chemistry. What is it that makes you you? What are the distinctive elements of who and what you are, as opposed to all these other people, as opposed to everyone else? What exactly is it that makes you the creative person that you are? Rather than just taking it for granted or assuming that you don't have such a thing, pause and ask yourself that. And this is calling for experimentation. The 5th, where the Venus retrograde happens, is also a house of sex in the form of, I think of the sex of the 5th house as being teenagers or sex in the art studio or sex in a conscious play space. One of the ways you know you're part of the sex positive movement is you think of sexual experiences as happening as play experiences happening in play spaces. So one of the things I propose to people who are wanting to be on a path of sexual evolution or revolution is find a place besides the bedroom to have sex. Find a place besides the place your parents had sex to have sex. Who knows, maybe your parents were interesting people and they had a playroom up in the attic, but getting sex out of the bedroom and into the art studio or into the play space is a good thing. It does this thing that I'm suggesting is important for Aquarius, was it shifts the ideas and associations with the activity rather than having it all be like it always was. And a bed is a good place to sleep. And look, there's fun things happen in beds. I mean, it's, I admit to having had some fun in beds, but for the purpose of let's say making the most of this opportunity, consecrate the art studio. The art studio is the place where you will self-create. You're the art with Venus retrograde and Vesta in the fifth house. You're the thing that you're creating, with all the stuff in the 12th, which has interesting resonances to the fifth. You're the thing you're creating. Your soul is the soul that's being born. You're the thing that's becoming too big for the shell that's containing you. But to experience the scale of that change and the beauty of that emergence, you're going to have to obliterate all these past patterns and concepts, but let the creative growth process do it for you. Let it happen naturally, that whatever it is that's being created in you or that you're creating in the world has to take over the space of the space in the household, the space in the attic, space in the basement, space the dining room, space in the living room, wherever. That the known order, the known structure, the known pattern now must yield to your creativity in some, bold and relevant and friendly way. One other last thing: form your own groups. Don't join groups. Form your own groups. Aquarius is about groups. There's definitely exciting stuff going on in Aquarius saying, well, you need your peeps and not the other peeps. But also, Uranus in the fourth house in Taurus. Check out the Taurus reading for more about that. For you, that's about having your unique expression of your home space. Your home space cannot be confined. I'm going to wave my hands all around. Cannot be confined by other people's concepts of what your home space should be. You must be able to define and invent your home space. And then we've got, Apollon up here on the 10th house, this thing about gathering groups in Scorpio. You want the people whose scent you like. You want people around you, not necessarily because you're an English major and they're an English major, or they're an accountant and you're an accountant. The right group for you to form is the group of people who share your kinks, who are able to talk about this in polite company, because that's the concept of polite. And this will expand to all forms of collaboration. I think that for any real collaboration to work, there must be some facet of sexual compatibility between the people. It's not that you have to have sex with a person. It's that our bodies have to like being around each other for us to be able to be around each other. And so bear that in mind. And it's I think a beautiful thing, and something that you may be able to give yourself the freedom to do, and at least de minimis notice how you feel wherever you are in your environment. All right, that is what I have to say to you. If Aquarius is not your sign rising, check out your sign rising. If you don't know your sign rising, please do contact us or look it up. You need your birth time or approximate birth time to get that. Don't guess your birth time. Okay. And share this with others you think might like the ideas. Okay. Love and bye for now.